Hi, welcome to Toilet Training in School. Today we're going to go over some of the basics to help you get started. I'll give a list of some basic toileting skills that you might want to teach your students, some common student profiles of kids ready and needing toilet training, important questions to ask before getting started, how to teach toleration, ideas for preparing and planning, the basic components of toilet training, data collection, and graphing. Here are some basic toileting skills. Some of your students might have some of these, but not others. This list will help you decide what goal to set for your student. Here's a list. Tolerates sitting on toilet, voids or releases urine in toilet, stays dry throughout the day on a prompted schedule, completes toileting steps independently, initiates use of toilet or requests for use of toilet, and bowel training. Here are some common student profiles for students ready for toilet training. Some of your students may have had no previous exposure to toilet training and no toileting skills. Some might have limited exposure and limited skills. Some may show signs of refusal or aversiveness. Some may be schedule trained but don't initiate or request use. And some might be bladder trained but not bowel trained. There are a few important questions to ask before getting started. Does your student have any medical concerns? While this is not typical, it's important to rule out. Some common causes include physical disabilities, infection, or medication side effects. You also want to gather as much previous history as possible. Has your student ever been exposed to toilet training? If yes, what did it look like and what were some of the barriers or issues, and which parts were successful? You also want to find out if home caregivers are willing and able to support in the toilet training process. If yes, you want to share a list of all the needed items to send to school and create a routine with home caregivers for restocking items and changes of clothing. If caregivers are not able to support, this is not a deal breaker, but you will need to gather the resources on your own or with support from your organization. If your student demonstrates any type of refusal behavior, you must work on tolerance before starting any toilet training program. For students who refuse to enter the bathroom or show signs of problem behavior when trying to enter the bathroom, you must focus on pairing. You want to condition that bathroom as a positive place to be and a safe place. You do this by placing preferred items and activities inside the bathroom and allowing the student free access. During this pairing time, you engage with your student yourself to pair yourself and develop a trusting relationship. It's important to remember not to place any demands on the student at this time. The only demand is that they stay in the bathroom and engage with their toys. They cannot leave the bathroom with the toys. You might need to use gradual exposure for either duration, so the amount of time they stay in the bathroom, or location. So you might start a student to stay in the bathroom for just a few seconds and work your way up to a few minutes. Or you might have them stand in the doorway and gradually increase distance to the toilet over time. Once the student seems comfortable and the bathroom is conditioned, you want to start tolerating sitting on the toilet. You want to teach your student to sit on the toilet for at least 2 to 3 minutes before starting a toilet training program. You're going to use a strong reinforcer to deliver for sitting. You'll slowly increase the time they are required to sit over time. You might first start with just a few seconds and then gradually increase over time in order for them to earn that reinforcer. So now you have a first then. First sit on the toilet and then you get iPad. You can use a timer or you can count backwards to help the student understand the interval of time in which they need to sit in order to earn. Now it's time to prepare for toilet training. The first thing you want to do is identify and gather strong reinforcers. I suggest isolating these reinforcers only for toilet training. Isolating a reinforcer will increase the value and make that reinforcer more effective and potent. You want to consider isolating highly preferred items from different categories. The second thing is identifying and gathering liquids and proper cups or water bottles to use for flooding. I'll get to that in a little bit, but we're going to increase liquid intake in order to increase the opportunities for training. Water or favorite liquids should be offered and available throughout the day. One tip is salty snacks, increasing thirst for kids who don't like drinking very much. The third thing is identifying proper clothing the student can wear throughout the day and gather several changes of clothing. I suggest easy access. Consider underwear and a long shirt or elastic pants. I also advise kids to wear waterproof shoes or slides as shoes often do get wet during accidents. You also want to do dry checks to make sure students are staying dry throughout the day. Gray underwear is great for spotting wet spots. The last thing you want to do is organize all of these items for easy and fast access. Consider storing items in the bathroom, and don't forget to keep reinforcers out of reach for those kids who are slick. Here are the three basic components of training. First, you want to increase liquids, and increasing liquids will provide more opportunities for teaching your students. Then you want to set up your prompted schedule to use the toilet. Before you teach a student to request, they should be able to eliminate in the toilet on a schedule and stay dry throughout the day. The third component is dealing with accidents, because they will happen. You have to figure out the best way to deal with them. Increasing liquids. Start to offer your students favorite liquids throughout the day. Again, this will increase the need and opportunity to use the toilet, which therefore increases teaching opportunities. Choose a cup or bottle that's easy to travel with. Taper off your liquids at the end of the school day to prevent accidents while traveling home. I recommend at least 30 minutes. Again, that tip, have salty snacks available to increase thirst. Number 2, prompted schedule. You want to choose a time interval to start your student off. Start with shorter intervals of time. I suggest between 10 and 20 minutes. You can determine this through either trial and error or taking baseline data. Keep in mind that flooding will increase the need to urinate. At the end of each interval, say, "Time for bathroom," and prompt your student to walk to the bathroom and complete the needed steps. You'll need to choose a duration for sitting. Students should sit on the toilet for between 1 to 3 minutes unless they urinate immediately. After your student urinates, you want to reinforce right away. Remember, you're isolating reinforcers just for this behavior. If a student sits but does not urinate, say something like, "Oh, that's okay, you didn't have to pee, we'll try again later." You're not going to provide any reinforcement, and you're going to resume the schedule. Dealing with accidents. At the first sign of an accident, as soon as possible, you want to interrupt the student and say something like, "No, you go pee in the toilet." This is not a reprimand, but should be an obvious correction. Guide the student to the bathroom, have them undress, and sit on the toilet to finish eliminating. If the student urinates in the toilet, give verbal praise, but do not deliver that isolated reinforcer. "Oh, good, you went pee-pee in the potty." If not, prompt the student to get dressed and resume the schedule. Have the student do as much of the dressing and cleaning as possible in order to make it effortful. I highly suggest writing a protocol. Writing a protocol is recommended for your planning and implementation and reference for the whole team. I recommend these areas to include in your protocol. What is your goal? What are the objectives? And what's the current target or step? You want the data collection method and a list of items needed. What are your intervention strategies? And then specifically your toileting procedure and accident procedure. Here's an example of a protocol that I wrote for a student. Here's an example of a baseline toileting data sheet. Taking baseline can help determine an appropriate toileting schedule for your student. It can also help you identify any other important information that can help with planning or a need for intervention. Once you determine what your schedule will be, you can create a toileting schedule sheet specifically for the current target. You want to create or use a data sheet that reflects the current needs. These two are very different examples. The first example is a daily data sheet documenting every 5 minutes. This could be used for recording dry checks or recording initiation throughout the day. The second one is a weekly data sheet, which documents the current toilet training schedule. When you take data, it's important to graph it. Graphing will help you identify patterns and trends and help determine when criteria is met or intervention needs to be implemented. Some additional considerations are using visuals. Consider using a first then visual in the bathroom to remind the learner what they can earn for voiding in the toilet. I always recommend tackle boxes for storing edibles. It's a great way to have your student be able to see what's available without grabbing it. Consider prompting the request from the beginning. Some people train this right from the start. Consider adding a prompted request as part of the procedure, using the student's method of communication. Remember, feeding prompts must be done effectively and quickly. Once your student consistently uses the toilet, start fading out the toileting schedule. You may go from 30 to 45 minutes, then to 60 minutes, then to 90 minutes. Next, you'll fade the use of the reinforcer. So maybe for every urination once a day to every other day, or at the end of the day. If you've been having them wear underwear only, have them resume wearing pants. Cut back on that fluid intake. No more flooding. Once they're staying dry on a toileting schedule, consider teaching your child to initiate toilet requests. Some students need to learn requesting to use the toilet or go to the toilet on their own. Teaching initiation should occur after starting the toileting schedule so that the students get used to voiding in the toilet and being reinforced for doing so. You want to gradually increase the time the toileting prompts you give and have the student near the bathroom when he's likely to go use the bathroom. At this point, you'll reinforce the independent request and/or independent initiation to use the toileting and go on their own. If your student is bladder trained but needs bowel training, you're going to use similar procedures. You're going to set a schedule, have the student sit on the toilet for a period of time, say 5 to 10 minutes. And if they void, you reinforce for successful bowel movement. If no, okay, we'll try again later. This is easier done at home than it is at school, depending on the student's schedule. Some of our students have diaper rituals. While they may urinate on the toilet, they don't like to defecate on the toilet and prefer either holding or waiting for a diaper. First, identify a strong reinforcer, just as we did before. If the student requests for a diaper for bowel movements, require the student to go into the bathroom to use the diaper, even if they're not sitting on the toilet. Once the student does this successfully, have them sit on the toilet while wearing the diaper. You might even consider trying to cut a hole in the diaper or folding the diaper back so the child defecates in the toilet. You may do so until no longer necessary. Use the reinforcer with each step. You can access all of these toilet training resources from my Google Drive here. Just scan the QR code with your smartphone. If you'd like more support individualizing plans, developing protocols, making data sheets, or troubleshooting, email me anytime throughout the process.